You probably have already seen this now viral photo which shows a packed U.S. military plane, Reach 871, meant to carry 134 soldiers, was forced to ferry 640 Afghans, all desperate to leave the Kabul after the Taliban once again seized Afghanistan. But not many were so lucky. Some even perished in the chaos at the Kabul International Airport, with no less than 5 people killed in the panic. U.S. President Joe Biden has defended the withdrawal of U.S. troops. He says there was never a good time to do it.
Our mission in Afghanistan was never supposed to have been nation building. It was never supposed to be creating a unified, centralized democracy. Our only vital national interest in Afghanistan remains today what it has always been: preventing a terrorist attack on America's homeland.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with the situation of Filipinos in Kabul, Afghanistan, after the Taliban seized control in a matter of days. Some have already fled the war-torn country, while others are still waiting to be rescued. Mobile journalist Judy Baiza will gives us a front seat to the story.
Para kaming naghahabol sa tumakas sa mga ligaw na bala.
Mark works as a security personnel in a Kabul hotel near the airport. When news of the Taliban takeover broke, he and others have swiftly departed their residences in Afghanistan's capital.
Mula kahapon nang lumabas kami ng hapon, wala na kaming kain. Tubig lang, yun lang.
Mark is joining 4 other Filipinos in a British military flight to Dubai. While they are already safe, he can't help but worry for Pinoys left behind in the war-torn country.
Yung ibang Pilipino na lang naiwan yung nakakaawa kasi surrounded sila ng mga Taliban sa labas ng area nila.
Taliban fighters are taking charge in Kabul, setting up checkpoints near the presidential palace and the Hamid Karzai International Airport, where thousands of civilians have attempted to flee the capital. Some of them even clung to U.S. military transport plane Reach 871 as it taxied on the runway. Over 600 Afghans pitted themselves on the plane, designed for only 134 soldiers. Children held on to their parents while other refugees used cargo straps as makeshift belts. U.S. President Joe Biden stood by the exit of American troops in Afghanistan.
Here's what I believe to my core. It is wrong to order American troops to step up when Afghanistan's own armed forces would not. They would never have done so while U.S. troops remained in Afghanistan, bearing the brunt of the fighting for them.
At least 12 military flights had taken off on Tuesday, but some 20 Filipinos have yet to depart the Taliban-controlled country. Like Ricky, who's still in Kabul waiting to be rescued.
Dito sa compound namin ng company, safe dito actually. Mas mapayapa ngayon. Wala ka na maririnig ng mga gunshots or whatever na pagsabog.
They've already sought the help of the Philippine Embassy and their employers for repatriation. Ricky has a scheduled initial flight today. For the meantime, all he can do is pray for everybody's safety. Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
To tell us more about their situation on the ground, we have with us on the show Joseph Glenn Gumpal. He is president of the Filipino community in Afghanistan. He's joining us live via Zoom all the way from Kabul. Mr. Gumpal, good evening po. Mr. Gumpal, can you hear us? Babalikan po natin si Mr. Gumpal later. After the abrupt takeover of Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul, what's next for the Taliban in establishing rule in the country? Bloomberg Quick Take explains the implications of the Taliban's return to power and how it will likely affect the region.
Most analysts, even officials in the government, predicted it would be at least a couple of months before Kabul fell. So, the speed at which the Taliban moved took a lot of people by surprise, and I think it showed based on the timetable they had for evacuating people out of Kabul and moving resources away from the embassies. So what we have now is that the U.S. is really scrambling to get all of its citizens and other Afghan local employees who helped out the Americans and their families out of the airport, which is really the only place right now that the Americans control. Well, certainly there's many implications for the region. Neighboring Pakistan has dealt with terrorism across from Afghanistan for years, but there's a lot of Islamic extremist groups in the neighborhood that have threatened Pakistan and other countries, including India. So the concern is that there might be some spillover from Afghanistan to other parts of Asia, including China. China has expressed concern with the Taliban about unrest in neighboring Xinjiang as well. China, of course, probably is the most at stake in the region now for a stable Afghanistan, particularly with its billions of dollars of investments in Pakistan, which is a key part of Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative. China will play a big role in trying to stabilize the region. Well, that's anyone's guess at the moment. The Taliban have said they want to form an inclusive government. So what that looks like really remains to be seen at the moment. In the past, it's been kind of a winner-take-all system. Afghanistan never has truly had a central government. There's been a lot of warlords governing different parts of the country. And even with the US-backed administration, the Taliban still controlled large swaths of the country. So the first part is kind of how do they reach out to their political opponents? Do they try and give them some sort of representation in the government going forward? And I think that'll be key to how the international community, China, Russia, but also the US and its allies, respond to whatever government takes over in Kabul.
And these are the other big stories tonight. A day after the president defended him, an emotional DOH Secretary Francisco Duque appeared before House lawmakers saying the COA report was unjust and unfair. Private hospitals are now employing unlicensed healthcare workers, as 4 out of 10 nurses have resigned from their jobs since the pandemic started. Many more are threatening to leave their posts over unfulfilled benefits. And boxing champ Senator Manny Pacquiao returns to familiar territory. He has set foot in Las Vegas once again ahead of his bout with Dennis Ugas. These big stories after the break. Good evening, I'm Robbie Ampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Health Secretary Francisco Duque was emotional, saying that the latest COA report tarnished the DOH honor. Duque remains to be on the good side of President Duterte, much to the dismay of some senators. Mean Los Baños has the story.
That we're not operating under normal circumstances. Winaharap na ninyo kami eh. Winaharap na ninyo ang dangal ng DOH. Winaharap ninyo ang lahat ng mga kasama ko dito. Kasi this is really unfair, unjust. That this judgment has been handed down clearly without giving the DOH the full 60 days.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque can't help but be emotional as he faced House lawmakers who are probing the Commission on Audit's report on the 67 billion peso deficiencies in the handling of COVID funds. He insists that most of these items have been resolved.
Tinitiyak po ng inyong kagawaran na walang bahid ng katiwalian ang paggamit ng pondong ito. At ang lahat ng ito ay nabibilang at nagamit para sa pagpapahusay at pagpapaigting ng ating pong COVID-19 response.
The man who put in him his post, President Duterte, once again defended Duque on Monday night and even had a word of caution for COA.
Stop that flagging. You make a report, do not flag. Do not publish it because it will condemn the agency or the person that you are flagging.
But that did not sit well with some senators. Senator Ping Lacson said that Duterte was out of line in castigating COA, urging the agency not be cowed by Duterte's intimidating statements. For Senator Risa Ontiveros, the recent surge in COVID-19 cases is a clear indication of Duque's failure as DOH chief.
Reflection din yun na ayaw talaga ni Presidente na humarap sa accountability si Sec Duque. That speaks volumes of absolute insensitivity.
Senator Zubiri meanwhile said that although he respects the decision to keep Duque, the health chief must work double time to correct the agency's mistakes.
Ayaw kayo palitan ng Presidente, malaking tiwala po ng ating Pangulo sa inyo, then correct the deficiencies. Then work double time to correct the deficiencies that were pointed out by the COA report.
For the DOH's part, Health Undersecretary Leopoldo Vega explained that they were able to resolve the points questioned by COA. This includes the 11.8 billion unobligated allotment, 1.8 billion donation, and 275 million meal benefits. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Health workers in the private sector are threatening mass resignation as salaries remain low almost a year and a half into the pandemic. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
Private hospitals have been trying to stem a hemorrhage of nurses, but it's been a losing battle. The Private Hospitals Association says 4 out of every 10 nurses working in private hospitals have already resigned since the pandemic began. Many private hospitals are now using unlicensed health workers as a stopgap measure.
We are making use of the underboard nurses, unregistered nurses, and the midwives, and the nursing attendants.
Private hospitals have been hoping to tap into the 5,000 newly licensed nurses who should be joining the workforce this year. But there are still not enough applicants. Salaries of private hospital nurses are almost just half of salaries of those in public hospitals. Degrano says private hospitals are struggling to make do with unlicensed workers.
As long as you have one registered nurse that can supervise them, then that will be okay.
Private nurses groups have been threatening mass actions. Under Bayanihan, 29 billion pesos were set aside to give health workers a special risk allowance of 5,000 pesos per month. But 8 months into 2021, many health workers say they have yet to receive the promised benefits.
Taliwas po sa mga sinasabi ni Secretary Duque na yan daw po ay downloaded na. Kalukuhan po yun.
The health department says they already released 7 billion for special risk allowances, but Dr. Degrano says the money may be tied up in the regional level.
Some of them require that the money has to pass through the local government units, and then the local government units will again issue memorandum of agreement, etc.
Lumia says if the government does not find a way to either raise the minimum salaries of private nurses or give their special risk allowances, then a mass resignation will always be an option. I'm Jacob Lazaro and we are One News.
SARS-CoV-2 variants are suspected to be diminishing the efficacy of several COVID-19 vaccine brands. But by how much? According to the WHO latest epidemiology update, the Alpha variant first reported in the UK only diminishes the efficacy of all current available vaccines by 10 to 20%. The Beta variant, first detected in South Africa, and the Delta variant, which was dominant in India, reduces vaccine efficacy by up to 30%. Russia's Sputnik V and China's Sinopharm and Sinovac have no data yet about their efficacy against Delta. As for the Gamma variant, first sequenced in Brazil, present information for all brands remain limited. A unified vaccine certificate could be available in the Philippines by next month. Government officials are hoping this could finally serve as vaccine proof abroad for OFWs. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez has this report.
By September, those fully vaccinated can begin applying for digital vaccine certificates issued by the national government. The portal and mobile app will be called VaxCert PH and follows WHO standards for uniform vaccine cards.
Inaasahan po natin dahil itong VaxCert PH ay in-issue ng isang opisina, itatanggapin po ito ng iba't ibang mga foreign governments.
The Department of Information and Communications Technology or DICT and the Bureau of Quarantine are the lead agencies working on it. They were initially working towards an early August launch. The certificates will come with a QR code that can be scanned wherever people need to show proof of vaccination. Roque says it can also be used for international travel.
Ibig sabihin po, pwedeng gamitin doon sa iba't ibang mga apps na ginagamit po ngayon para masiguro yung pagpabakuna.
The Labor Department said more than 3,000 Hong Kong-bound OFWs were stranded because Hong Kong refused to recognize their LGU-issued vaccination cards.
Ang gusto kasi ng Hong Kong ay uniform. We are requesting them to allow the Bureau of Quarantine to come up with certificate. Pero wala pang positive response from them.
Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion says he was also told that the certificates would be ready in a month.
I've received my confirmation from DICT with the QR code, and I'm told that this will soon be operational to the public in the next 30 days.
DICT Secretary Gringo Honasan also appealed to LGUs who haven't done so to submit their line lists or their lists of residents who have been fully immunized. The Department of Foreign Affairs has promised to work with other countries to make sure the VaxCert PH is recognized internationally. In the meantime, the government says Filipinos who need to go abroad urgently may apply for the so-called yellow cards from the BOQ. I'm Pamela Vasquez and we are One News.
For the big story in sports, 6 Filipino athletes are all set for the World Paralympic Games to be held on August 24 in Tokyo, Japan. The para-athletes say they are drawing inspiration from the country's most successful campaign in the recent Tokyo Olympics. Swimmer Ernie Gawilan and wheelchair racer Gerald Magliwan will be joined by Taekwondo Jin Alain Ganapin, swimmer Gary Behino, discus thrower Jeanette Aceveda, and powerlifter Ashel Guion. National team chef de mission Francis Diaz said they are looking to bring home medals from the quadrennial meet, just like in the 2000 and 2016 Paralympic Games. Let's take another break. When we return, for the first time since his last bout in 2019, boxing champ Manny Pacquiao returns to Las Vegas to face a new foe in Yorderis Ugas. Details after the break. Mr. Gumpal? Mr. Gumpal? Mr. Gumpal?
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening po.
Good evening po.
Apa, Robbie Alampay po.
Apa.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. Ako po si Robbie Alampay at balikan po natin, kanina kinakausap natin, more Filipinos are seeking repatriation in Afghanistan. We go back to Joseph Glenn Gumpal. Siya po ang presidente ng Filipino community in Afghanistan. He is speaking to us from Kabul. Mr. Gumpal, welcome po to The Big Story.
Salamat po.
Sir, kamusta po ba kayo dyan? Day 2 na po. Day 2 na po ng takeover ng Taliban sa Afghanistan. Kamusta po kayo dyan?
Awan ng Diyos, maayos pa po naman. Okay naman po kami.
Nasaan po ba kayo ngayon? Nasa Kabul po kayo at saka sa pagkakaalam niyo po, ilan pa po ang mga kababayan natin dyan?
Andito po ako sa Kabul ngayon, dito sa hotel, sa Baron Hotel. At ang kababayan natin nandito ngayon, meron po kaming naka-line up sa repatriation na 78. Tapos may dalawang nag-join kanina lang. So mga 80 pa po kami.
Ano po ang briefing sa inyo? Paano raw po ang sistema ng pag-repatriate sa inyo?
Nung una kasi ang repatriation ay nag-request kasi ang Philippine government ng chartered nung una. Chartered flight. Kaso hindi nakakuha ng landing permit dito sa Afghanistan, dito sa Kabul Airport. So ang ginawa nila is nag-decide sila na ibili na lang kami ng ticket ng commercial airline na Turkish Airways via Istanbul. So nagkaroon na ng batch by batch, ganon. Ang first batch actually is 36, supposed to be leaving on the 22nd. Ang problema nagkaroon ng pagdagsa ng mga tao, ng mamamayan doon sa airport dahil sa intention nilang makakuha ng makabiyahe papunta Amerika as refugees. Even reach them to 100,000. So ang nagbago ang isip ng Turkish Airways at nag-cancel nila ang lahat ng flights nila for the next 15 days.
15 days.
So nag-usap uli kami ng Philippine Embassy at nag-decide sila na hindi na itutuloy yung commercial flight. Ang gagawin na lang ay magre-request na lang ng chartered flight uli sa Philippine Airlines. Ngayon nagkaroon nga ng pag-uusap at pumayag yata ang Philippine Airlines, which we are expecting a flight coming in tonight, 9 o'clock. At magsasabay-sabay na yung lahat nung 78 or 80 na nagpatala dun sa repatriation. Kaso ang problema yung dami ng tao rito, ewan ko lang kung na-clear up na dahil 2 araw na daming tao Yan nakikita dun sa yun ang nagiging hindrance para makapasok yung flight dito. Hindi ko lang alam kung na-disperse na ng mga US forces yung mga taong yan. Ang dami talaga.
Paano naman po yung papunta sa airport? Mula sa yung pag-uumpisahan nyo na hotel hanggang sa airport, payapa ba po sa kalye dyan?
Opo, payapa naman po dahil tapos naman na po ang gera nakapag-turnover na at Taliban na ang naggogobyerno rito. Pati mga pulis, Taliban na yung nag-checkpoint at yung mga nagtatraffic, mga Talibans na. So, wala namang problema pagpunta sa airport. Ako nga, lalakarin ko lang malapit lang dito lalakarin ko lang yung pagpunta ng airport. In case na matuloy ang flight, maglalakad lang ako. Kaso yun nga, nagkaroon ng pronouncement ang Philippine Embassy na deferred nga raw ang flight until further notice.
Okay, Mr. John Glenn Gumpal, maraming salamat po. Sana po mapayapa ang pag-uwi nyo, makauwi kayo ng matiwasay. Maraming salamat po. Another story in sports, Manny Pacquiao has arrived in Las Vegas ahead of his welterweight bout with Dennis Ugas on Sunday. Pacquiao traveled to Las Vegas with his family after wrapping up his training camp in Los Angeles. This is the Senator's first time in Las Vegas since July 2019 when he beat Keith Thurman with a split decision victory at the MGM Grand. Pacquiao is challenging Ugas, a last-minute replacement for Errol Spence, who pulled out of the fight because of a retinal tear for the WBA Super World Welterweight title. Some Filipinos remain stranded in the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, but smart communication is giving all of them free prepaid load on their roaming SIMs. All Afghanistan-based Filipino subscribers may now make urgent calls and texts to coordinate their repatriation and reach out to their loved ones. They will also receive a free Roam Lite 250 subscription inclusive of a 3-day 200-megabyte open access for web surfing, and social media. PLDT Smart President and CEO Al Panlilio said they are also ready to provide further assistance to our kababayans. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. Sa ngalan po ni Gretchen Ho. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.